I'm going to start general. How many of you have had a situation where somebody has said something to you and it's totally caught you off guard, and you know it's caught you off guard because your mind goes blank, and you know your mind went blank because 20 minutes later, when you think about the conversations, you think of all the perfect things you should have said in the moment that you could not think of. So put your hand up if you have ever had a mental freeze at some point in your life. Good. This is where I judge the room, because if you do not put up your hand, I'll find you, point to you, and say, you're lying, because even if it's like that perfect comeback. So there's scenario one. It's an everybody one. The second one might not be everybody. I will say this is one that I work on continuously, sometimes with more success than others. So let's say you are going into a meeting. How many people got to do meetings and stuff regularly? Okay, so let's say it's one of those really good meeting invites where we actually know what the meeting's about. Like there's a full agenda and everything. So we get the meeting invite and we look and we want to be collaborative. We want to be solution-oriented, no doubt. But we also know that they are asking us for something that we're going to have to say no to. And so we go into the meeting, and we're looking to kind of teamwork and figure out a way through this. But in the course of that hour, somehow our very clear no has gotten budged into a yes. And now we've agreed to something that we know we shouldn't. How many of you have been in that situation? Okay, so I like the hands. It did this. It was like, yes, like 2 seconds ago. This just happened to me. So genuinely, think about it. When you agreed to something, how long did it take for you to regret it? Like, instantly. It's like the echo's not even out in the air yet, and it's like, I want to pull that back. I regret that completely. Okay, so there's two things, and I think that it's important we talk about it from a workplace perspective, but at the end of the day, we walk out the door of work, and we walk into our lives with people who are important to us. So let's talk about those people for a minute. How many of you have somebody in your life who is important to you, that you care about, that the relationship matters, but they know how to push your buttons? Okay. So you know what I mean? Like they just know what gets under your skin. So then you're like, okay, but this relationship matters to me, so I'm not going to let that stuff bug me. So when they do what they do, I'm not going to react, because every time I react, we end up in the exact same place, and it's not a good place. And I care about them. That's not what I'm going to do. But then it's like the end of the week, and we're tired, or they just do the thing that they always do. And we do the thing we always do, and it just snowballs, and we end up in the exact same place we swore we weren't going to. How many people have been in that situation at some point? And this stuff is frustrating. It is frustrating because I have absolutely no doubt that this room is full of caring, smart people. We knew what to do before. We knew what to do after. And yet it's in the moment. How we react, how we respond, the decisions that we make in those moments that don't actually always show how caring, how competent, how able we are. And I don't know about you, but that's frustrating, because it's how those little moments, how they start compounding, that actually genuinely has an impact on our relationships. So if we can start to think about this idea of emotional intelligence in those types of moments, if we can understand what happens to us, because we're going to look at this from a brain science perspective, because it's totally natural that every one of these situations occur, because science shows us our brain's designed in such a way that emotions get the upper hand. That is the design of our brain. Now, if we understand that, if we understand what happens under pressure, when we feel like we want to get along with somebody so we agree to something that we shouldn't agree to, when we are on the spot and our brains just don't work, if we understand what's happening from a brain science perspective, then we can put strategies in place so that in those moments we show up, we act, we react in ways that are much more aligned into what's most important to us. So we're going to look at what we do in the moment of those types of situations. Right? And so we know that when there's those people who need to be the smartest people in the room, and they end up sucking the capability and intelligence from the rest of the group, they mistake being high performers with being indispensable. And that's the third shift I want to leave you with. Our best people recognize that the value you add is not being the person with every answer. It's creating space for other people to be able to do their best work. In fact, they aim to make themselves dispensable. And I see again and again and again in so many organizations where wonderfully intentioned people have inadvertently made themselves indispensable because they think that they have to have the solution to every single problem. But in that situation, then you have to be at every meeting and you have to answer every email, and you never can actually be away and take the time off. You cannot be a leader if you are exhausted. It is incredibly hard to be filled with empathy when we are drained of energy. So I leave you with this very last piece. When we are empowering people, we can also leave a message that it is okay to take care of yourself. You do not have to be the end-all and be-all of everything, because collectively, us together, we are far more effective. Dedicated as you are to the work that you do and serving the members that you serve, I suspect there are still some people in this room who, when you look at your typical day, unfortunately, some days you are feeling overworked, you're feeling overwhelmed. There may be times where you feel a little bit underappreciated, and that's challenging, right? And not only that, you know when that's challenging, because the worst of that is when it starts to spill over outside of work and home. And you know that happens because when you reflect on things, you know the people who deserve the very best of you are not getting the best of you. What they are getting is the leftover you. And so part of what also may have made you come here was to look for different strategies and insights to allow you to do the work that you are so committed to, allow you to foster those relationships that are so incredibly important, and do it in a way that is not going to burn you out. How many of you have gotten one of those emails that's like a doozy of an email? Like, it's a terrible email where that fight or flight, like your heart starts pounding and it's so loud, like it's in your ears. Has anybody had one of those? Like your knees shake. It's a doozy. So you get this email and you're like, oh, no way. I call that amygdala typing, brutalizing the keyboard. So, get this email done. Now tell me if this isn't true. We've got some voices. Let's go to this voice. We have it. Hey, Sarah, you should walk away from the computer right now. You're pretty ticked off. You're like, oh, I'm pretty ticked off. Save it to draft. How many people have been in that? Thank you. So we save that email to draft, and we walk away, and we do what we need to do, and then we come back 20 minutes later, and we're like, we read the email again. Do we not do this? We read the email again. And are we like, good email, send? Is that our typical response? What do we do instead? Okay, so there's either the like, oh gosh, delete that. Like, I don't even want that saved anywhere. But more often, is it not fair to say that we start softening the edges? We reread it. Is it not fair to say we start considering how the other person is going to read it? Interesting. When we wrote it the first time, who were we thinking about? You're a jerk to me, and I'm going to make sure you know it. With some time, that we start focusing back out. Okay, so there's that one. Let's go to the other one. This voice. Sarah, that's so well written. You should send it. You're like, loving that voice, send. And then we hit send. And how do we feel the minute we hit send? Okay, so I am a horrible human being because I'm not like, oh, shucks, shouldn't have done it. No, I'm like in that moment, it's like, yeah, now they're going to really see. So but does that feeling last? No. And then as more time goes by, we're like, oh no. We read the whole email and we're like, oh, there was a thread underneath. Like, I missed it. Whatever it may be, right? We start collecting more information. Creativity. Our brain requires space to be creative. But if we think about workloads, what usually goes with workloads is more hours and less downtime, which virtually makes it impossible for us to be creative. Not only that, we don't even realize that our brain is very, very deceiving. We don't even realize there's an impact to our creativity because we kept doing more and more work. And our brain convinces us that a bunch of work and a bunch of activity is the same as creativity, our best work. And those two things are not the exact same. That range really is in that place where we are doing excellent work, but we still have the capacity to step back and re-engage in the things that will allow us to keep doing that great work day after day after day after day. That is going to be the defining factor, the competitive advantages that we have in the future.